Name the group. Lyn Rowe, name the group.
You're the expert.
Starts with a question mark.
Who?
Question mark and the Mysterians. Am I right, boys? Yeah.
Out.
Yeah.
See?
96 tears.
96.
That's what Lyn Rowe's going to be crying if Bernie Sanders gets elected.
Ah.
You have a problem with Bernie and all of this entitlement spending. We're talking about 50% of the entire budget. This is according to the Congressional Budget Office, not Ray Lucia.
Yeah.
By 2030, which really not that far away right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking 14 years.
Yeah.
50% of all of the money we collect will go to just Social Security and Medicare. Throw in defense, which everybody is saying needs to be bolstered because of ISIS and all that stuff.
Yep.
Although it's nice to hear the bombast from Trump that says, you know what, all these United Nations countries that we're supporting, we're going to charge them something.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Send
take
them a
some of the
bill.
oil or whatever. Again, I'm not getting into politics here, but this is scary. Entitlements, military spending, interest on the debt, assuming interest rates don't go up, which you know that's going to happen, and there's basically no money left.
Ray, I have to, this is like totally off the path here, but let's talk about the interest on the debt discussion alone. I mean, if you just think about your budget, do you not think about paying off the debt? When you're looking at your debt, do you just say, well, I can maintain the interest, I'm good for, the next year? No, of course not. You start thinking, how can I pay down the debt? We haven't even approached that thought. When we talk about our budget nationally, all we talk about is servicing the interest.
We've been trying to get some inflation because inflation would at least mean wages are going up.
Right.
We've had this growth in the stock market over the last 7 years, an impressive number. We're talking about a couple 100% plus, and we've done so with pretty lackluster economic growth. You can grow your way out of a lot of these problems. But here's the problem with that. With a $20 trillion debt and the interest on that debt, if you start to grow and you start to create inflation, interest rates goes up. And so now you've got this tug of war going on because the debt's dragging you down while inflation is dragging you up. You could end up with what we had in the 70s, stagflation.
Right.
So it's a serious problem and why this is a really serious election. But we're not here to talk politics. I want you to tell me how I can get my long-term care for free.
Well, we talked about this before, but let's reiterate. There are studies now that are indicating that 14% of the medical expenses of a couple over 65 could be mitigated. In fact, evidence is that they would be mitigated by having home care or skilled care, but particularly home care, having insurance-based long-term care. Insurance-based long-term care. Why is that? Because people tend to defer, if they don't have the insurance, they tend to defer getting the care. They put themselves at the end of the line and they don't get the care that they need. And when they don't get the care that they need, then there's nobody watching over their shoulder to make sure when they have the fall that somebody picks them up, checks to see if they're all right, takes them to the doctor instead of 911, and now you've got cha-ching, huge bills.
That just happened to me a couple months ago. It just happened to me because we signed up for Medicare, some easy pay plan was supposed to come out of an account and something got confused and we moved and the bill went to the wrong place and all that stuff. And I'm thinking money's coming out of my business account with Denise, Denise, and she's thinking it's coming out of another account and it didn't come out at all. Oh, Lord. And they actually dropped me on Medicare. And I went to get my prescriptions and all that stuff. And they said, oh, no, you're no longer covered. I'm going, what? And I had to go to the doctor. I actually paid for a doctor visit because, as you know, I need to go, more frequently now. And it took me like 60 days. They finally said, oh, yeah, we were supposed to take the money out. And they finally are taking the money out now. But man alive, that was a scary situation to be without coverage, to have health concerns, recognizing that your doctor visits and your co-pays and all that stuff, prescriptions ain't going to be covered.
Right.
What you're saying is by buying, and I do have a long-term care policy,
Yes, you
thankfully,
do.
for many, many years, and it's a darn good one. I love the fact that I bought it. But you're saying that my health care expenses are likely to be 14, 15% lower.
Yes.
And I can use that 14 or 15% to actually pay for my policy.
I mean, the costs that you're offsetting can actually be used, like you say, redeploy those dollars into the insurance premiums.
And you can do that by paying these things off early. Can you explain how a person can get, because nobody likes payments in retirement.
Right.
Can you explain how they can get out of paying for it?
Well, there are short-term care plans. In other words, there's short-term care coverage, but there's also short-term care premiums. So you can, for example, have a policy that's paid up in 5 or 10 years. You can also redeploy dollars that you've set aside. I mean, I hear people say, well, I'm going to self-insure because I've got this money and it's sitting somewhere. Well, let's take that money and leverage it up to 3 or 4 times what you've saved in case you need the care. And if you pass, which many people say, well, what if I don't use it? Then, in fact, it goes to the family, again, leveraged up to some amount, depending on your age and health. I mean, that's a beautiful way to self-insure efficiently.
Now, when you were walking in, I heard you talking about building some wall. What, are you going to run for president or something? What the heck were you talking about?
Who's going to pay for it? No, here's my point. When we took Financial Planning 101, one of the things we learned was to, in fact, build the safety net around you to start with. You build your foundation of safety. And I've always envisioned that as like kind of having a wall around your little castle, right?
Okay, so you aren't building a wall.
I'm not building the wall, no. But let's say, for example, you've got on one side, you've got a 6% chance of something coming in, invading your space that could cause you harm. And you build a wall on that side. And then over here you've got another, say, 15%. But back here you've got a 70%. Now, does it really make sense to build the highest wall on the 6 and the 15% side?
Oh, so what you're saying is you could choose to build a wall on the Canadian border and have Canada pay for it.
Right.
And we really don't have a lot of worries about illegals crossing the border in Canada, although they do.
Yeah.
Or you can build a southern border wall.
We in San Diego are concerned about that. Yeah.
And tall, and Mexico will pay for it, according to Mr. Trump.
Right.
And because that's where the real problem lies.
That's where the probability is, for Pete's sake. And what I'm alluding to is the fact that you have less than a 6% chance of your house having a major fire. You have less than a 15% chance of being in a major automobile accident that will total your car, but you have a 70% chance of needing long-term care as a couple. Does that make sense that we would self-insure on the 70% side? We wouldn't have a wall there?
People do it all the time.
I know.
You buy health
no wall
insurance,
over
you
here,
buy
but
car
we're going to
insurance.
make sure that we cover that.
You buy all these other insurances.
Yes.
A lot of them are mandated.
Mandated.
And
protect yourself.
It really does make sense. But what I heard you say many times now is it's not going to cost you nearly as much as you think because of the savings. Now, how can that be? How can I save more money on my health care? Is it simply because I take better care of myself, or I avoid falls, or what?
Okay. So we talked about that a little bit earlier. One of the examples being, in the event of that fall out of the wheelchair, if someone catches you right away, gets you to the doctor, it's possible that is going to stem that tide of problems and health needs. And plus, no one's picking up the phone and just calling 911 in a state of panic, which is what happens. Or you push the button, right? You push the button sends an ambulance. We all know what that costs.
A lot of money.
3 or 4 digits. But here's another point. Somebody who's actually reminding you to take the meds on time.
Yeah, well, that's so true. My dad's got his pills all lined out. They have those little containers and this.
Family members, God bless them. They're so heroic. They want to be there. They want to do it. Let's face it. There are people that do this for a living, and that's like, okay, checklist. And if you're a caregiver that's a family member, you're kind of going, okay, now what is it I'm supposed to do? Okay, it's just.
Well, and you've talked about, and we have to go, but we've talked about the lifespan of the caregiver is shorter in many instances than the lifespan of the person they're providing care for.
And there's a study that indicates that is now the trend.
This is nuts. Okay, I want my LTC.net. You need to do this. And I know that you know that I know that you are a procrastinator. And what Lyn Rowe will do is she will show you how to make it right and how to make it affordable. Because that's what she does. She's done it for me. She can do it for you. I want my LTC.net. She doesn't bite. I'm told. Friends have told me. 877-270-3127. She's only a tiny little thing, a tiny dancer, we call her. So we know, and she's not mean. She's not going to twist anybody's arm. Please, please do yourself a favor. I want my LTC.net. She's also brilliant and one of my best guests on the Ray Lucia Show. Thank you, Lyn.
Thank you.
Take care.